administrator. And it is about the best profession that I think exists for anyone. It is a profession where you are able to actually make a difference. So if you consider all those students in your career that you would actually impact in really positive and uplifting ways, that's going to be thousands of people. And so it's really an opportunity to be able to shape the future, is exactly what it is. The second really good key message I'd like you to take away with you today is that in reality, university, okay, granted, the online thing that we're doing right now is maybe not the best way to see this, but it's also about coming to university to experience that life. And so we're very, very hopeful that soon we can all be together again, and that you will have the opportunity to walk around the campus and to experience what university is like. For those of you that have already had degrees and would be doing an after degree, or for those of you that would just be brand new to the University of Calgary, it is a fantastic place to be. It's friendly and it's warm, and the city is a fantastic place to live. And lastly, you're going to get a chance to hear from some of our students today. So I know that we have a number of members of our ESA here. ESA is the Education Students Association. I encourage you, and of course they might not appreciate this, but I encourage you to ask them the tough questions. So when you're really trying to get an idea of what it's like, and what might your classes be like, and how does it all fit together, and what did they learn, and really get them to explain those things for you, because sometimes those are the kinds of answers that are best coming from another student. Having said that, there are some answers that best come from advisors. So if you're curious about how the program fits together, or how you would choose your classes and do all of those kinds of things, those are questions I want you to really think about directing towards an advisor and not another student. So with all of that said, I really wish you the very best for the following hour and off into your future as a University of Calgary student. And I really cannot tell you how much I value the day when we can meet again in person on campus. So have a wonderful orientation, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Amy. Awesome. Okay, guys, let's get started with the presentation. So we'll talk a little bit about our BEd program, the different features that we have in it, and then we'll roll into the questions that I'll be asking some of our current students, those part of the ESA, and then we'll definitely give everyone an opportunity to unmute your mics and ask your questions if you'd like. Please know that you are welcome to ask questions via chat, the chat room on the side of the presentation while we're going through this, and we have Virginia and Angie will be able to answer those, or maybe field some of those, and maybe we can save them to the end, or maybe they'll be answered right away. But all right. So what is a BEd? So the BEd is an undergraduate degree that we have. Typically it takes about 4 years of study, but we definitely have different pathways for you guys to choose from. It consists of 120 units, and it is required to teach any subject from K to 12 in the province of Alberta. So what are those different pathways that we have for you? So the majority of you here today are in that 4-year BEd pathway. We also have 2 other options, a 5-year concurrent. So at the end of that 5 years that you take, you'll be able to have 2 different degrees when you walk that stage, either with a arts, science, or kinesiology degree in addition to that BEd. We also have that 2-year after degree, which requires you to already have a degree, and you come back to UCalgary and you work really, really hard for those 2 years, finish off all those education courses, and then you can go and work towards your certification to become a teacher in Alberta. The 4- and 5-year BEds are available for those high school students or transfer students who do not have a degree yet. If you already have a degree, why go to the 4- or 5-year? You can go right to that 2-year after degree program. So probably the most fun that people hear about the program before they get into the program is our field experience. Now it's one part of the many different opportunities that we have on campus for everyone to experience, but your field experience is four different field opportunities, each kind of growing in weeks. So our first one is 2 weeks, then we go on to our 4 weeks, 6, and then 8. And don't worry about your classes. We've definitely made your schedule a little more flexible. So what happens is when you take your block of courses, those courses will stop and then you'll go into your field experience. That's when you actually go to that elementary or secondary setting and you don't have to worry about how am I gonna get my courses done. Don't worry, those are on pause until you come back to school to finish those. As you progress through those field experiences, and those weeks get longer and longer, what you also get to do is more and more opportunities for you to teach. So you'll notice on screen that as you get to, when you start at field 1, you only have, it's observational week, 1 in elementary setting and 1 in a secondary setting. And then you start moving on to how much time am I actually teaching all these students? It goes from 50, 75, and ideally right up to 100% of the time. Different opportunities that we have. Again, we're only scratching the surface here today. We have our Teaching Across Borders, our tab. So you'll definitely hear a little bit more about that when we start going through all of those questions with our student panel in a bit. But that's a great opportunity for students to do a placement in their fall semester of their final year of the program. You can volunteer, experience new culture, share and receive knowledge about teacher education and teaching practices. And those placements are all over the world. You can go to Asia, Australia, Europe, different parts of North and South America. And that's definitely a great opportunity for students to get away from, Calgary for a little bit, experience something a little bit different, and kind of really develop those skills. And it looks great on the resume too, right? When you're actually going to apply. And it also gives you an opportunity to connect with other students from those areas, and who knows, you might want to actually go teach in Australia one day for a little bit, right? So those are great opportunities for students to have. Service learning, we have an extensive list on our website for all the different service learning opportunities that we have. Loads of different opportunities to work with children in different grades, all from that K to 12. And you can apply what you learn in your program to the real world, and you can also get some co-curricular credit as you build that professional network, right? So you're also going to interact with those pupils and other students, which makes great opportunities. We partner with different, like Calgary Stampede School. We also have Beakerhead, and so I definitely recommend everyone to go and check out our service learning opportunities on our website for more information about that. Okay, so the big bulk of the presentation is our fantastic student panel. We have 3 different panel members here today. The panel is definitely going to give everyone an opportunity for you guys to hear from those students, learn about their experience in field and tab, and then again, we get to an opportunity for you guys to ask your questions. So we have Tina, Ruth, Jonah. Tina, if you wanted to start, just introduce yourself, and then we'll go over to Ruth and Jonah.
Hi there, can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So hi everyone, my name is Tina Miller. I have a biological sciences degree from 2018 from the University of Calgary, and I'm just graduating from the actor degree program in elementary mathematics, as I think you can see on the screen there. I'm the VP Events for the Education Students Association this year. So the ESA is the student local of the Alberta Teachers Association, and we offer ways for students to get professional development experience. I organize events for students to get involved and connected with each other. And we really offer a student community on campus. So yeah, I offer professional and personal events and work on a really great team. I'm sure Ruth and Jonah will talk a little bit more about it, but I'm really excited to be here to share some of my experiences and to meet some of you. So thanks, Ruth.
Thanks, Tina. Can everybody see me?
Yeah.
And hear me? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So my name is Ruth Penagitan. I'm the I'm the just past ESA president of the 2019-2020 year, and I'm also like Tina. I've also graduated this year, and my degree is the 5-year concurrent English and secondary English route. Yeah, and Tina kind of said it all with the ESA. It's really awesome to get involved, and there's so many opportunities for you to really enhance your professional development, and just that community piece is really big for the ESA. So I really encourage you guys to join. If you have any questions at all about that, please don't hesitate to ask. And yeah, thanks. Jonah?
Hi, everyone. As on the screen there, my name is Jonah Sicredi. I'm the current VP Communications and incoming president of the Education Students Association. So in this past year, I essentially handled all the communications for our association, which is usually a few hundred members strong. So monitoring email, social media accounts, promoting different opportunities, stuff like that. And then I'm also in the 5-year concurrent history and secondary social studies route. And I know Tina and Ruth spoke to this before, but the ESA, it's a really great way to get involved as a student. And it's a good way to not only connect with others on campus and university, but a way to connect with the kind of the teaching profession in Alberta, as we are affiliated with the provincial organizing body. So yeah, and thank you guys so much for coming out today.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll go on to the questions, and we'll probably just ask them in the order that we have them there. So Tina, Ruth, and then Joan, you guys can answer. So the first question that we have is, what is the most memorable moment in your field experience? So go ahead, Tina.
So for me, I had to think a lot about this one, but just in general, I think building relationships with students is always something that people talk about as one of the most exciting parts of your field. You come in as basically a stranger. So I was in a grade 7 classroom for my field 2 experience. It was all girls, a uniform school, so a really new experience for me. And junior high students especially, I think, take a while to trust you as a teacher and as a confidant, and to show that vulnerability. So I think one of my favorite it wasn't necessarily a moment, but like a process. I teach math, so we had a table at the back where we'd offer one-on-one support at the end of our lessons during work periods. And for the first couple of weeks, students wouldn't really come. They wouldn't, approach me willingly to ask questions. So it was really rewarding when slowly I had students come up to me and express that, they weren't understanding something. Could I expand? And having that trust and rapport with your students, I think, is one of the most valuable things, because you really get to know them and they get to know you, and you really do become a little community. So I'd say that's one of my favorite experiences, aside from, when you really nail a lesson and it goes really well. And so that's exciting too.
That's awesome. So what was probably the biggest challenge? I know you kind of touched upon it, but the biggest challenge that you faced, and how did you overcome that?
So for me, I guess it kind of ties in with that trust piece, but really finding my identity as a teacher, which is a lifelong process, I think, but finding what strategies and techniques work for you, because you're coming into someone else's classroom that isn't always maybe your style of teaching, but finding teachers and mentors that you can look up to, shadowing other classrooms, and gaining techniques, and then just developing like a set of strategies and techniques that really work for you, I think is difficult, because it's a lot of trial and error. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. All right, so Ruth, you're up. Your most memorable moment of your field experience.
Yeah, thank you. So my most memorable moment, so my last field experience was at a high school. I taught grade 10 English 10-1. And for the first couple of weeks, I was just, because like Tina said, we were kind of just right in the middle of the semester. We're kind of just like, hey, I'm here. I'm going to start teaching you guys. And so I had to really integrate myself into the classroom and really get a really good rapport with the kids before I even started teaching. And so finally, and I was doing that for pretty much every day until I started teaching, which was about mid-month end of February. So I I started my lesson, and I thought it was like an okay lesson, it was pretty mundane. Just went through my slides, did a little activity, and two students actually came up to me at the end of the class and was like, "Hey, that was really great. Thank you so much for a really great class." And I was like, "What? This is amazing!" And just like that feeling of like actually doing something really cool and getting feedback from it and getting feedback from the students is really awesome. And like that moment still sticks in my mind, even months past. So that's really cool. Most memorable for me.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest challenge, I guess, that you faced through your experiences?
Yeah. So again, like Tina said, like it's always that kind of struggle of like, how do you find your identity in a classroom that isn't how you started it? But I think the one that stuck out to me the most was finding an assessment like strategy that is both challenging, like being able to challenge the student, but also not disheartening them. So finding a balance between like what sort of assessment can you give? So for example, so in English class, I marked a couple papers for some students, and I marked it a lot tougher than their original teacher, my partner teacher, usually does. And so when I told them about it, they were devastated, like absolutely devastated, and they couldn't like talk to me after that, because they were so upset about the type of assessment I gave them. And so that was like really crushing for me, because I was like, how do I build up that rapport with that student again, because it doesn't seem like they trust me anymore. But yeah, like and just trying to figure out like what is the best balanced assessment. And it ended up being fine, and I think it was just a bad day for them, and like other students were getting, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but it was, yeah, that was kind of the biggest challenge for me, was trying to balance a really good assessment to
Awesome.
encourage.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you. Jonah, your turn. Most
All
memorable
right.
moment in your field.
Yeah, so I know like the field experience this year had to be a little bit adjusted, but I'm going to focus on like the first field experience I had back in October, which was only 2 weeks long, observation, so not really very much teaching, but still a good experience. So the most memorable moment I had from that was actually being able to sit in on a staff meeting at the high school that I was at. So, and then during that staff meeting, they were discussing and like debating a little bit the CBE's update of, I believe it was assessment practices for the entire board at that specific school. And it was really cool listening to different like departments and teachers kind of give their input on like what was suggested and like what could be improved on stuff like that. So, and after all, being a student and, like for the majority of my life, it was very cool to like be in a teacher staff meeting for the first time as well, for a long time being in school.
Oh, that's awesome. So again, yeah, only being through that kind of first field experience, probably not crazy challenges that you face, but anything that kind of jumped out at you in terms of is challenging or could be challenging through field?
I feel like the biggest challenge with field one that most people experience is like, how do you maximize your time in the schools where you're located at? Because you only have 1 week for 1 week each for 2 schools. And then by the time like Wednesday or Thursday rolls around, you kind of feel like you're, getting a little bit of the idea of how things go, and then you switch to another school. So I guess facing that challenge of how to maximize your experience is just the big thing is to make sure that you're talking to as many teachers, administrators, students as you can, kind of getting the vibe of each school. Ask for assistance, ask for if there's any support that you could have in the future from teachers. And I was fortunate enough to have a lot of individuals say, hey, if you ever want to contact me in the future, I can help you out, give you some advice. So yeah, I guess the main thing is don't be afraid to ask for help. And if you're not sure, just don't be afraid to talk to someone, even though it's a pretty short time period.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, on to student opportunities. So we kind of broke this out into different experiences that everyone has experienced, I guess. So Tina, did you want to talk a little bit about your TAB experience, your Teaching Cross Borders experience?
Yeah, sure. So it feels like a long time ago now that the process started rolling, because you do quite a bit of prep before you actually go. But I went last fall to Australia. So I lived in Brisbane for 2 months with a couple other students. And I was placed in basically 2 different schools. So for 1 month, we were in an all-girls private school, and then the second month, it was the public or state system there. There's a really big discrepancy between the two. So we got to see, I guess, a broad spectrum of teaching in Australia. The reason I chose that country specifically is because I'd never been like anywhere basically traveling. I'd never gone anywhere by myself, even navigating the airport. So for me, it was a really big personal learning experience. But on the professional side, it was really cool to be in like a completely different classroom. You know, you're definitely the outsider and you're having to learn the ropes, and you get to pick up on a lot more strategies and techniques, you know, that you can add in addition to those you learn in Calgary. To build your repertoire. It was really neat to see the different perspectives and ways things were taught. The assessment methods were different, you know, Australian history and social studies, even science and the animal life, and just a lot of things were very different in what the material that was taught. So I feel like I learned, you know, more from the students sometimes than they learned from me. I taught grade 4 and 5 mostly, so I was shadowing the teacher there. And, you know, it really pushed me out of my comfort zone as well. But it's really cool because the students are really interested in Canada, so they ask you tons of questions. And I think that's very similar for a lot of my peers who went to different countries. And a lot of them ended up getting hired, you know, to teach abroad. So it's definitely, as you were saying, an awesome opportunity to kind of just expand your skill set and in your like awareness of how teaching operates in the world, because it's not all the same as here. So yeah.
Awesome. Anything, so you definitely touched upon your professional experience there. So let's talk a little bit more about your personal experience there. So cool hiking trips or just trips in general. How was the beach? How was the weather?
So yeah, it was a neat opportunity. We were there over spring break as well. So we had 2 weeks off, even though we were still communicating with the teachers, to basically travel. So that was a really neat way to see the country. I took, you know, a couple of flights here and there, and yeah, we spent time on the beach. And so it was very strange doing, you know, our seminars and our Zoom classes. You know, sometimes we'd be at a random picnic table logged in or sitting, you know, on a travel bus. So it was neat to still be connected to the community on campus here, but being able to like, yeah, go outside and go for a hike or go for a swim at any point. And yeah, it was neat coming right back into field and continuing teaching. So I basically got to teach for 4 months straight on, give or take.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Awesome. Okay, Ruth, experiences in your service learning, and what was the most challenging and rewarding experience through your service learning?
Yeah, thank you. So with service learning, I think my experience with that was mostly with the youth forum, and that was really cool. So essentially the youth forum is multiple different schools around the city who are welcome to like get a grant from the university and to enhance something in their schools. So the students and their teacher representative would come with them, and they would plan out what they would like to do. So some of the stuff they did was creating a GSA, a Gay Straight Alliance, those who don't know, getting gym equipment for recess, or starting whatever sort of club the kids would like to start, and they would get that grant, plan it, and so we would meet with them once a year, and then or twice a year, once in the beginning of the year and once at the end of the year. And what was really cool about that was that you get to see like what if they actually did accomplish what they wanted to do, and some of the kids there were really inspiring, and they use that as kind of like a platform to have their voice heard, and the most memorable for me for that moment was when these grade 5 students were creating their GSA, and it was actually just in the right in the area where GSAs were getting challenged in government, and a lot of those students were really personally affected by it, and they use that as a platform to be like, hey, listen, like this is not not just for you, the adults. Like this is for me, a grade 5 student who's really affected by this, who's lost friends because of this. So like please stand up for me. And so it was a really cool moment. And the other, like the challenging thing about that was not being actually able to actually help them and support them throughout the year. You only got to really see them twice a year, and even though you kind of see their before and after, you don't really kind of see the process of it. So that, I think that was the biggest challenge for me. The other thing is service learning is super, super cool. But I didn't really get a super big opportunity to do it in my last 2 years. And so since you guys are, I think you're all in your, either in your first year or
First year, yeah.
in your degree in general, or at the start of your university career, this is a really, really cool opportunity to just get involved. Even if you're not doing any educational classes or field experience yet, right now is a really great time to actually do these volunteering opportunities. There's sometimes even getting paid for it, because you will not have time later on in your degree.
Well, that's an awesome point. Yeah. When you have time to do it, may as well do it. Also, it's a great opportunity to connect with the education department, undergraduate programs office, because during that first little bit, you're taking all of your non-education courses. So it's a great opportunity to connect with us.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have also done, Tina and Jonah, some service learning. But what we'll do is probably ask you guys that after we get through Jonah's point on the Werklund undergraduate research that he's looking to do. So what led you to that experience? And let's talk a little bit about that Werklund research.
Yeah, no, so like my experience with undergraduate research, I just want to preface that I know research is used a lot at the university, but I know when I first started, I didn't really understand what that meant. So I guess the simplest way to look at it from my perspective, imagine like what you're doing as a student or what you're doing in school, except at the university level, you get paid to do it, and you're doing something that's usually never been done before. So that's kind of the big thing that I think of. So imagine that if you're like for the sciences, if you're doing a lab, you're doing a lab as like a professor with like a lot of education, and you're doing it on something that's never been done before. When it comes to work on undergraduate research, it's more of a social science. So you'll be interviewing people to see how students like a certain math problem. You'll be testing student success if they play a video game that results in them figuring out like a certain graphic design or science experiment. Does that video game actually help improve their learning at the end of the day? Do they feel more equipped? Or does it actually have like a negative effect? So it's sort of like just looking for questions and answers and trying to like make an impact that way. And of course, like publishing and giving information back to teachers so they can improve their practices later on. So what led me to this experience is that in my first year in Education 201, one of my professors actually said that I encourage everyone here to apply for a programs and undergraduate research award, which is essentially like summer funding, like administered as a scholarship, but it's like a job for the summer where you work with the professor to work on a project that you've made for yourself, looking for an answer to a question. I honestly didn't exactly know what research meant in my first year whatsoever. So I kind of like, it fell off the radar a little bit. And then talking with some friends who had some more experience, I was like, wow, at university, one of the main things that they do here is research. Like millions and millions of dollars go to universities to conduct these massive projects. So I think it would be, really fun and very like rewarding to get involved. So what I did was apply for undergraduate research programs like the Pure program that I mentioned before. It wasn't successful the first time. And still, kind of kept looking into it, coordinating with faculty, emailing professors and stuff like that. I was thankfully able to work as a research assistant at the Werklund School of Education this past semester, so supporting another project. And then I eventually did get that same award to work this spring and summer on my own research project. But yeah, no, it basically, if you can think of something like, imagine like what you're doing in a class, but just really extended, really has like a larger impact potentially. And honestly, just a lot of fun because it's very, very interesting to sort of take ownership of your own learning, but also be able to use that to actually help others. So I know that may be kind of a broad explanation, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to elaborate.
So cool. Tina, did you want to take this opportunity to maybe talk a little bit about your service learning opportunities that you've done?
Yeah, sure. So I did service learning for the most part in my first year of the after degree. And as Ruth was saying, get involved in service learning as soon as you can, because those years with practicum are quite busy. So getting involved, if you're in the concurrent program in your non-education years, or if you're in the 4-year, even in your first year, is an awesome idea. I did two during my time as a student. So I volunteered with Junior Achievement. Some of you might have heard of it if you worked in their company program in high school. So basically, they teach students about business skills, about finances and business. So we'd go into usually grade 7, 8, 9 classrooms and give a half-day presentation and workshop all about business and financial management, which I'm really passionate about. I think it's super awesome to enable students to kind of advocate for themselves and to understand the significance of money and moving into that, the job force and beginning their careers. So that's what I did for that company. And it, it was good. It was really flexible because you could stay when you were available and maybe go in every Wednesday morning or, once a month. And Werklund's really great. They give students usually a day, especially in your first year of education classes, that you have off that is perfect for those service learning opportunities. And then the second thing that I did is I volunteered with to read Calgary Reads, the Read with ELL program. So I met with a grade 2 student every week, and they give you books and prompts and resources and materials, and you just support the English development of this student. So those are the two that I did. I think you really do some research to find out which service learning placements fit with you. There's a lot of different choices, as you were saying, the Stampede School, Beakerhead. So really make sure you're getting out of it what you're looking for. The other really cool thing is you get to come back and there's seminars where you can talk to other students about their placements. And so if you come across an organization that sounds like it really aligns with your values and goals, you can reach out. And you're supported all the way through instead of just volunteering on your own.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Jonah, did you want to touch upon that service learning?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have as many opportunities to get involved with service learning in my degree, but talking with friends who did participate in it, it's definitely, in university, one of the biggest things you find in your first year is that there's so many opportunities to volunteer and do stuff. It's almost overwhelming, and there's no way you could possibly even handle a quarter of it as an individual. But with service learning, it really is very directed towards education. It gets you out into the community and kind of have that experience, because it's great to volunteer on campus. But we do kind of occupy a little bubble inside the university that sometimes people outside of it don't necessarily have that same experience with. But if you want to balance off being involved on campus, but also learning what your life is going to be like as an educator in the future outside the university community, it's a really great opportunity that way, from what I've heard.
Yeah, awesome. No, thank you guys so much. And doing that along with all the ESA stuff, that's just absolutely incredible. Okay.
William, I'm just going to pop in here. We've had a number of participants join us at 9:30, and I'm wondering if now might be a good time to start asking our participants if they have questions.
Yeah, no, that was the next slide. So we're definitely going to open it up to the floor for everyone.
Thanks.
No, my pleasure. Let me So I'm just going to quickly stop sharing my screen just for a second, just so I can see everything. And I will unlock everything so then we can start muting mics. So if you guys want to raise your hand, you guys are more than welcome to ask a question. And as those hands pop up, we'll definitely unmute, or you guys will be able to unmute yourselves.
We have a question from Katerina. I'm not too sure if she wanted
to ask that. Yeah, Katerina, would you like to ask your question? You should be able to.
Yeah. So, hi. I was wondering if the opportunities for service learning, if they're different if you're doing a concurrent degree compared to if you're doing a regular education degree, just because the concurrent degree is a lot more condensed, and it sounds like you get opportunities based off of what year you're in at the moment. So I was wondering if that was different.
So
Ruth, do you want to respond?
Yeah. Actually, so I was in the concurrent degree, and I found that actually I didn't quite know about it in my first year, and I wish I did so that I can do it in my non-education years. I found that my education years were just so busy with field and everything going on that during my arts degree, that's when the time I wanted to do it. So get in there as soon as you can, really. And I don't like it doesn't there are some requirements that it says specifically that this is just for like second year students or first year students of whatever degree, but that it'll say on the service learning website. It's very quite extensive.
Okay, thank you.
Another question from the student?
We had another question asked, just if there's enough time to walk between classes. There's 10 to 15 minutes, and if there's enough time to walk between classes. So maybe Ruth, Tina, or Jonah, if you wanted to respond to that question.
Yeah, I can kind of tackle that. I know my placements have not always been the greatest on campus. So I found that 10 to 15 minutes is more than enough time if the classes are between buildings that are attached. So if you look on the map and they're right next to each other, it's just like a few minute walk. There's traffic inside, so sometimes going outside is easier. But if you have classes that are across campus, be a little bit careful, because I remember one time, for example, I had a class in the administration building, which is kind of in the center of campus, and then the experiential environmental energy learning building, if I got that acronym right, on the north side of campus. And that was about a 10-minute gap in between those two. And I didn't have to run, like full on run. So again, if it's like building to building, that's fine. If it's middle of campus to the north side of campus, then maybe just be a little bit careful with that. It's still possible if you want a cardio workout, but.
Yeah, and you can talk to your teachers too, like let them know. Usually, especially in education, you travel as a cohort, so usually you're not the only one booking it across campus. So typically, I had a class that was really far apart and the entire class was late every single time. So we just went 5 minutes over at the end. So teachers are pretty understanding because usually they have to book it too. So.
Another question here was for the continuing education program. Do all the classes take place in the same building? If you could just elaborate on that question a little bit. I'm not too sure if you're referring to the 5-year concurrent, the 4-year, or if it's another program that you're referencing.
For the after degree then, for the 2-year?
Yeah, sorry, Tina, I'm not too sure. It's just a question that has come in here from a participant, and I'm not too sure. Yeah, if you're referencing the 5-year, the after degree is a question. Yeah, okay.
So for the after degree, I found that most of them are in the education building. So I'd say like 80% of your courses are going to be in the same building, and really quick to get to, really easy access. There were a few that weren't, but like I said, the entire class had to then make, the migration to the other building. So it was totally reasonable.
There seemed, William, to have been a problem, I think, with the mic. And so some people, the link. So some people were just wondering if we could do a quick summary or recap of the beginning of the session. So I don't know if you can do a quick snapshot of that, William.
Yeah, I could totally do that. Give me 2 seconds. Let me screen share. I'll go back a few slides so then everyone can kind of see. Awesome. Yeah, happy to zip back a few slides and kind of do a quick review of what we did. Then we can jump back into some questions if students have that. So let's go back to the beginning. So basically what we did at the beginning is that we did a quick overview of the BEd program. So it's typically a 4-year program that we're looking at. A BEd is required to teach any subject from K to 12 in Alberta. And a good point now that everyone is here to kind of talk about is that if you do get into that kind of elementary science program, and you do graduate from that, there's nothing really stopping you from going to teach in a secondary setting. And that can be bio, that can definitely be English or whatever that may be. So a BEd is all that's required. What your teachable is just additional courses that give you additional foundation of knowledge, so that when you actually go for that interview and say, hey, I have my BEd, here's some additional courses that I have, in the field of math, science, English, whatever it may be. So it definitely makes you a little bit more suited for whatever you're looking to go into, but you're welcome to take additional courses within like a previous degree after your B.Ed program, maybe squeeze a few courses in between, and we can definitely work with you as academic and student advisors on campus to help kind of steer that. If you definitely want to take your English language arts program and maybe toss in a few science or math courses there just to kind of broaden your knowledge, we can definitely work with you there. In terms of the different pathways, a common one would be that 4-year B.Ed program, but we also have a huge cohort in our 5-year concurrent program. So the concurrent program is really cool because you actually get 2 degrees within that 5-year timeline. And if you do need to take a little bit longer, you're welcome to take a little bit longer to complete that 5-year program. You can definitely chat with students about that. So your first 3 years of that concurrent program is in that arts, science, or kinesiology faculty. And there's a whole bunch of different majors that you guys can pursue, and that's all available on our website. So there's certain pairings that you're allowed to do, and some won't fit perfectly, but we're definitely happy to work with students. And there's a nice big list on our website, so we can definitely share that later. And then we also have a 2-year after degree program. So if you go in and get a degree, whether it's at UCalgary or a different institution, we definitely have options for you to choose an after degree program. So you'd come for 2 years and complete all of your education 400 and 500 courses, which is all of those like education major courses. So that's how that works there. We talked a little bit about our field experience, and that was kind of touched upon on some of those questions as well. So we have 4 different field experiences that we have, 2, 4, 6, and 8 weeks in length. Don't worry about your courses when you're doing that. They actually pause. So when you're in those field experiences, you're actually in an education kind of block of courses. So that block is actually designed to stop the courses, then you can actually go and do your field experience and then come back depending on which field experience you're doing at the time. And as those field experiences increase in length, so going into that 4, the 6, and the 8, you'll actually be teaching more and more of the course. So definitely the first 2 weeks is most certainly observational, and 1 week in an elementary setting, 1 week in a secondary setting, giving the students opportunity to kind of see both regardless of which teachable path you went down. And then you can start kind of teaching more and more as you work on those additional weeks. And then we were talking about different opportunities. There's loads of different opportunities that we have on campus. Popular ones would be our TAB program, which is our Teaching Across Borders program, which will give students the ability to go to a different country, different setting during the time. So you can do an Asia, Australia, Europe, and different parts of North and South America. Those also include placements in Quebec as well. So if you do want to get a little bit of a culture change and stay in the country, that's available. But you're also welcome to go to Australia, Europe, Asia. So lots of opportunities there. And then we talked a little bit about our service learning. So different opportunities for students to work with children and other youth, bringing with their knowledge from the classroom and their experience in assisting those children and youth, getting some co-curricular credit, as well as building that network that you have. So those are the kind of the highlights that we were working on there. Sorry, I saw a few questions pop up. Was there some questions from the floor?
We just had one question asking if Mike was present that handles our service learning. He's not, but he also does service learning and TAB. And so absolutely, if you had a question specific, all of our Tina, Ruth, and Jonah here have all participated in one of those programs or another. So if you wanted to ask the question, feel free and ask the question out. Unmute your mic, or if you'd like to send a question in chat, we can read that question out for you.
We've got a few questions. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Hey. Hi. Yeah. So I asked the question about the teaching across borders. So I want to know, given our current circumstances, what would have to happen for the TAB to start running again?
Angie, do you want me to answer that one? Or?
If you want, and I can pipe in if you
Sure.
want to
Sure,
Yeah,
awesome.
that's
So,
more.
so pretty much all of the experiences, even the ones that were like, are we actually going to be on campus in fall? A lot of that we're waiting for governments to actually let us know what we're doing, right? So we definitely have contingency plans in the working to see kind of what happens, but it's really honestly a step by step. So are we talking about TAB? Yeah, we would love for TAB to be working, but it honestly is what is the state of that country, that province at the time. When students are actually looking to go into TAB, and being first years coming into their program, you still have a little bit before you have that TAB opportunity available to you. So we'll definitely keep everyone connected in the loop in terms of what TAB looks like. And definitely feel free to send a quick email to our service loading or just UPE, and we're happy to give you guys more messaging in terms of what that looks like. But currently it's more of a waiting game for everyone, right? To see kind of what the environment, right, our ecosystem's kind of looking like at that time.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's a lot of uncertainty in this situation, so we just don't know what's going to happen. It's more just like things happen when they happen kind of thing.
Yeah.
I can read out a few more questions. We have a question from Dasha who says, would you recommend to take spring summer classes for the 5-year BEd?
Have you guys had, so for the 5-year BEd, have you guys had opportunities, Tina, Ruth, Jonah, in taking spring and summer courses? Yeah, did you guys want to what that looks like?
I didn't do spring or summer courses just because I decided to work instead. But it doesn't really fast track your degree in any capacity really. Like it's still going to be, you're still going to have to do your 3 years of like whatever credit you need to do, and a lot of the times the mandatory courses that you have won't be in the summer or spring. It'll usually be during fall and winter. So this could be like a good time to do like your like whatever bookbinding class or art classes. Like it would be like for me it would have been for like funner courses, not really for mandatory courses.
Yeah, so definitely opportunities there to spread out your classes a little bit, but not shorten them too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, perfect. So because those courses are going to be through the co-degree program for the most part, I'm assuming that's what you're asking, you definitely want to go touch base with your advisors in art, science, and kinesiology. They'll definitely help you guys in terms of, hey, is there an opportunity for me to take 1 or 2 courses in the spring or summer? And what does that kind of look like? Because through that 5-year program, you're dealing with 2 different faculties. That first 3 years, you definitely want to chat with that co-degree. If you have questions in the meantime, please feel free to ask us, right? During those first 3 years when you're not in taking education courses. But yeah, feel free to do that. I'm sorry, Tina, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say I took spring summer classes in both my after degree and my initial degree. So as you were saying, it depends on the course load for your non-education years. For me, second year biology was quite heavy in terms of content. So I took some spring summer to lessen the load. So I'd say depending on your availability, it is nice to spread it out and you can concentrate more than on, the 4 classes per se that you might have, especially if you're working during the year, which I was all the way through my degrees. So I think it depends on circumstance. And then I got to take the spring summer classes because I was on TAB. Typically you don't, those are reserved for the community-based students. But there are sometimes online options as well if you're a student that's working or has a family. So there's definitely a lot of accommodations.
Perfect. Okay, another question from the floor? Virginia?
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, so I was just wondering, so I'm currently enrolled in the 5-year program where I know that the first 3 years I'm focusing on my other faculty and then I'm going into education. So all the, because I saw in the beginning of the slideshow, you were talking about how there are 2, 4, and 6, and 8 weeks of different volunteering opportunities as well as service. So would you recommend that I do all that in my first 3 years or do that later with my education program?
So, sorry, one more time?
So you were talking about, like in the beginning of the slideshow, you were talking about how there were different times where we get to actually go and do a practicum of 2, 4, 6, and 8 weeks. So all of that would, as well as the service part, would all that be recommended to be done in our last 2 years of education, or should we just try to get a head start on them in the first 3?
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be, so the first 3 years of the concurrent program, you're actually taking one education course, that's Education 201, and then you're taking all of your co-degree requirements. So you're really working with them to get all of those done. After you've finished all of your co-degree requirements and there's nothing left, you can then start on your education courses. Those are your education 400s and 500s, and they're very prescribed. So we have a very particular set of courses for your first fall semester that surrounds your Field 1 experience, and then we'll have your winter course, your Field 2 experiences, and those winter courses will be surrounding those. So in terms of you choosing your timetable and stuff like that, there are different times you can definitely choose, but in terms of what classes you have to take, we definitely have those kind of already prescribed for you guys. So it's just more so just choosing which time you want each course. So the education portion of that 5-year program is definitely the last 2 years of the program where you're just doing pure education courses. So don't worry too much about balancing those education courses right now. Just look forward to taking that Education 201 with all of your co-degree requirements. Once that's done, then you come see us and we can definitely help you with your last 2 years of your 5-year program, which will just be education courses.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah, of course.
I think there's a mix-up. I think that when you were asking about the 2, 4, 6, and 8, so that is just your field experience for your education degree. That is reserved specifically for those 2 years. So you can't really fast-track that in your earlier degree in your in the 5-year. The service learning, though, you can start that anytime in your degree. So you can start that in your first year, in your third year, whenever it is. So there is that distinction. So it's service learning versus field experience.
Right. 2 separate things. Thank you, Ruth. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That answer your question?
There's one thing I wanted to quickly add on as well. Sorry.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, so I guess like the way that I like kind of conceptualize the service learning, volunteering versus field experience. So field experience is like mandatory part of your degree, and that takes you off campus where you're essentially working full time for a period of time towards the end of your degree. Service learning is more kind of like volunteering and a bit more fluid with your schedule, but it's a lot easier to fit that into your schedule when you're not student teaching full time in your last 2 years when you're really busy. Your coursework is a little bit more like intensive and stuff like that. So doing the service learning in the first 3 years of your degree is a bit more feasible to schedule depending on your classes and your work availability and stuff like that. It's still possible in your last 2 years. It's just, it might be a little bit difficult because, like, for example, your last semester of education, you're only in classes until like, I think it's January to mid-February. And then the rest of that semester, you're a student teaching full time. You can't really be volunteering then. And then, yeah, and then sorry, one earlier question that was about the spring and summer classes. I just had to look this up to verify, but this may not impact most people, but taking spring and summer classes can reduce your course load during your fall and winter year. So instead of 5 classes, you have 3. But spring and summer courses, the grades you get on those don't count for scholarships that are calculated based on your grade point average. So again, like if it's that may not impact everyone necessarily, but if you get straight A's spring and summer, those A's wouldn't count towards you being more competitive for a GPA scholarship. That's just like a little specific thing that I know some people aren't aware of.
Yeah,
to share as well.
And no, that's great to bring up. But I would definitely recommend if students do have additional questions about their scholarships to definitely reach out to our scholarship office on campus because they'll have wealth of knowledge for you guys to check out and definitely let you guys know the different scholarships and bursaries that's available on campus. But thank you. That was perfect, John.
We have a couple more questions coming in. Lots of questions. Someone was asking about class sizes and how do those look like? Are there ones that are, more students? What do they typically look like in terms of class sizes?
I can respond to that if you like. Your class sizes so that you do have a plenary in the fall and you have 2 plenaries, large classes in the winter, but generally class sizes run around 35. And then your teachable subject areas will be a little bit smaller in your specialization areas, but class sizes on the average are about 35.
And there was another specific question regarding basically Indigenous teachers. So they were wondering for some of the Indigenous courses, and I think also it would be a good thing to mention our field opportunity, or our land-based learning opportunities, regarding whether there's Indigenous elders or teachers actually teaching some of those courses.
Jonah, Ruth, or Tina, do you want to talk about some of your experiences? As I know that we do have elders that are guest speakers, so maybe you could speak to your experience.
Yeah, my Indigenous professor for Education 5, one of the 500 courses, was Indigenous, and she's Blackfoot, and that was like, it was really awesome, like actually learning Indigenous knowledge and experiencing it from someone in the community was awesome. And I got to I also got to the ESA also provides PDs that are Indigenous focused. Like this year I went to a blanket exercise that had someone who was part of the Métis community running the exercise. So there's for me, those are my direct connection with Indigenous teachers this year.
Awesome. Okay. Anyone else experience with elders? Jonah, did you have any notes? Kind of short now, but.
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to take the Indigenous education class yet. I do know that there's a lot of professors in the faculty that do focus on Indigenous education as well. So even if somebody may not be necessarily Indigenous, there is a lot of knowledge in Werklund that can help contribute to that.
Well, they might have a lot of knowledge, but the way they teach is very different.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, another question? Virginia, any questions on the chat?
Yeah, we had a question, and some of these are maybe a little more advising specific, but there's a question about mandatory classes. I'm enrolled in secondary social studies, and there are 2 classes I must take, but they're already full and only offered once in one semester. What should I do?
Wait. Sometimes it comes open. A lot of people actually drop classes in the first week, so just wait till that first week. And if it's really mandatory, you can also just sit in and wait until you can be on the wait list or on the actual class list. But sit into those lectures so you don't miss them. But sometimes you might just have to take it next year, but that's okay. It doesn't. It wouldn't really affect it too much. But yeah, usually people do drop out in the first week.
Okay. I just want to be mindful of time. So it is 10. If people do have other things to go to, absolutely no problem. You're welcome to do that. I'll just throw up our contact information for everyone. So we have an email, so upe@ucalgary.ca. We are more than happy to make appointments with students. If you guys are current students, or if you know someone who's interested in the program, please have them reach out to us. We're happy to make a Zoom appointment, and those are available times there. And we also have a link to our undergraduate programs website there, so you guys can take a look at that. That'll be in chat as well. I'll be around to answer any advising questions that people may have. Virginia will be here as well as Angie. But the ESA members, if you guys want to stay, you're welcome to. If you guys want to head out, that's also perfectly fine. I'll just change the screen so we can see everyone. And yeah, sorry, any other questions from anyone?
We do have questions, and this might be something where Angie might want to chime in on this, but there was a student wondering about demographics of both the U of C and of Werklund. So racial demographics, cultural demographics, I'm sure gender or other things like that. I don't know if there's anything that anyone that can speak to that.
I see Ruth waving there.
Yes, go ahead, Ruth.
Oh, sorry, I do have to leave. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I can't answer that last question, but I do have to go. So thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoy your summer, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Have a fantastic day. Thank you.
Bye.
I can touch base on the demographics. We do have a larger population of students that are female, but we do have more males coming in. We do have We have older students and we have younger students. So our programs, our 4-year and our concurrent program sees some of the younger ones. The after degree does tend to be those students that are students that have completed a degree already. Some of them are coming back for a second or third career. And as far as we have groups from all different countries, nationalities. We do have a smaller number of international students as our students graduate with their teacher certification to teach in Alberta specifically. You can teach in other areas, but so that the international numbers are smaller. We have a number of Indigenous students. And so, yeah, there is a wide variety and we have students from all over and all walks of race. So I'm not too sure if that answered the question specifically, but feel free to ask further if you like.
Thanks, Angie. We had another question from Marina, who said, when selecting my classes for Schedule Builder, there was a class that was recommended to take in my first year, but when I searched the course, it said it was not a course. I don't know if you can elaborate on that. What do I do?
Which course is that, Marina, if you don't mind?
I believe it was Chemistry 213, but I'm not 100% sure, is what she said.
Yeah, so we can definitely do that. So please send us a quick email, right, just to upe@ucalgary.ca. Some of those courses, and if it's a chem course, it's done through the Faculty of Science, so we can definitely check in with them. We have different tools to go and take a look in terms of which courses offered in each semester. If it's a course that is required for you to take, whether it's a 213 or a Chem 211, if it's not available this fall, it may be available in the winter. Again, you can also take it in a future semester as well. So there's many courses that are required for you guys to take just to graduate, depending on which program you're in, the 4-year or the 5-year program. And we're happy to work with you guys. If it's not available now, it will be in the future. But yeah, definitely please send us a quick email just at upe@ucalgary.ca. Happy to look into that for each and every individual one of you guys and kind of give you guys more information. When you guys send an email, please make sure to include your UCID. So it definitely gives us an opportunity to go into your account and kind of see what you were attempting to enroll in. So totally happy to help you guys with that.
So this is like an arts question, but actually I can kind of tie two questions together. One, I was wondering what's the difference between fine arts and arts? And then what are the art courses you recommend taking for visual and performing arts foundational? Because many art courses say they're restricted to art history majors.
Okay, okay, great. So maybe what I'll quickly do now is because we are over the UCalgary time, let me quickly open up our website. So it definitely just gives you guys an opportunity to go and visit us and kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at in terms of like what's required. So let me share my screen one more time.
And maybe we could answer more general questions, and when we're getting into the specific advising questions, we could encourage individuals to reach out to us at UCalgary.
Yeah,
I am conscious of Tina and Jonah being here and being available for questions and stuff like that and student experience. They've experienced the program. So maybe if we've got some questions that are specifically to Tina and Jonah that they could answer on their experience. And then as far as getting into the details of the courses and those pieces, we could encourage an advising appointment follow-up.
Definitely.
There's a great general question here. Do you still have time to have a life outside of the 2-year after degree program is what they specifically asked, but I think in general, this can be something. How do you manage coursework? Any tips?
I saw a lot in the chat on managing everything. I saw another one here. How do you balance schoolwork, service learning, and clubs? So I think one of the most important parts, is timing. First of all, know that you're not going to be able to do a lot of other things and extracurriculars, like Jonah was saying, service learning, for example, during your field experience, during those really condensed times. For myself, I had to cut my work hours back during field experience. So really identifying, okay, I have these certain goals for the year. This is what I want to get involved in, and trying to map out your degree, I think, from the beginning, if you can. The other thing you can do is really relying on your peers. The nice thing about education is it is a really close cohort model. So there's always students going through the same experience as you. So in terms of when assignments are all due in the same week, you know, everyone's going through that together. So it's not just you feeling the stress and the pressure alone. And that being said, the undergraduate programs and education office has really targeted sessions and supports during those times, which is really nice because it is really a community in that sense. Do I have a life outside of education? You mean it depends on what you think a life is. If you're asking about, you know, do you still have time to socialize and spend time with your family? Yes. Do I spend a lot of time on campus doing extracurriculars? Also yes, but that's because it's something that I'm really passionate about and I love to do. So it just comes down to your priorities, I think. Jonah?
Yeah, I would agree with Tina on that. Yeah, it's yes, you can definitely have a life, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. I think the biggest thing that you can probably do is initially sort of make sure you're as organized as you possibly can be. So know your schedule, know your classes, kind of know your due dates well in advance because you're provided that at the beginning of the semester. And then also, like Tina said, the group work is really excellent because it's sort of like a shared load. It's not one person doing everything. The counter to that is that the course, like the classes that you get on your schedule, may not necessarily reflect like your actual work time. Because I know in my initial semesters, a lot of kind of scheduling involved around meeting with group members. Like maybe digitally now would be more convenient, but your classes don't really end outside of those. There is a little bit of work outside classes. You have to meet with people, talk with people, coordinate, plan. So if you can get that down packed and be organized, know your schedule, that's like a really good first step. And then the second thing is try not to overload yourself too much to the point where you're kind of burning out. It's good to take on things in addition to schoolwork, but at the same time, if you take on way too much that's impossible to handle, you're not really going to have a fun time doing those extracurricular things, and your schoolwork is probably going to suffer as well. So when you're first kind of getting into the program, I'd recommend, you know, volunteering, taking on extra things, but if it gets to the point of being too much, kind of just take a step back, look at like prioritize, what do I really want to do? What may I have to sort of hold back on for a little bit, and then just kind of go from there. But overall, yeah, as long as you're kind of planning it out, asking for support when you need it from advisors, from your peers, from professors, and then making sure that you're overall, like you're maintaining your like mental and physical well-being, you're on the right track.
Yeah, I just want to add in there too. Sometimes I think there can be a lot of pressure in university and, you know, in teaching as well. There can be this perception that you need to get involved in absolutely everything. You know, you need to, in order to be competitive and get hired, you have to take on every extracurricular at the school, say yes to every involvement opportunity, but being selective is much more valuable and respectful of your own time. So don't feel like you're going to fall behind if your peers are doing some service learning activity and you don't have time for that. You know, you're going to find value in a lot of the things you do. So yeah, don't get caught up in that mentality that you have to be doing everything and that, you know, you're being super competitive, I guess, all the time.
Yeah, it really comes down to quantity versus quality over quantity, sorry, because if you do like multiple things and you only like do it at a very superficial level, it's not really that good of an experience. But if you can hone in on like service learning, I really want to make the service learning experience the best I possibly can be and like really devote yourself to that. That one experience is worth a lot more than kind of 5 really superficial experiences where you kind of just did a little bit and you went to the next thing and to the next thing. So definitely, and then as well, it's easier to organize your schedule if you have kind of less things to organize, because if you're volunteering at 5 different schools or 5 different places, it gets very, very confusing. So yeah, quality over quantity, going like deep into what like fewer things instead of trying to spread yourself out too thin over multiple is what I would say.
Okay, I've got a question maybe for Angie or Will. This has been asked by a few students, so I just wanted to bring this up as well. Some people were unfortunately not able to come in early or had to come in late. And then they're wondering if they're still able to have an earlier class registration date, just because we've got a number of questions on that.
Yep. So yeah, they're more than welcome to. They will be able to still register early, so they don't have to worry about that. It was more so when they registered for the event, they'll get that. There's a link to a feedback report. Just make sure you definitely fill that in, and that should take care of any kind of technical difficulties that may have happened at the beginning if anyone was experiencing anything like that.
You might do a plug too, Will, in Virginia on our webinar that we're holding for the 4 years on Monday as well.
Yeah, so we definitely have two different times on Monday, one at noon and one at 4, just in terms of going over registration, talking about schedule builder, search for classes, and that's an hour session that we have. So I would definitely recommend people to visit our website, and I'll put the link up so you guys are actually able to enroll in that. So just send us a quick, just fill in your information on our website, and we'll send you guys the information for another kind of Zoom meeting like this, but more so focused on registration and how kind of everything works, foundational courses versus teachable versus education courses, and we're happy to go through all of that with you guys.
We just have a question, I think, to our panelists that are still available. Is there any extracurricular activities that you guys would highly recommend?
Jonah, do you want to go first?
Sure. I have a feeling that we might kind of align a little bit on this one.
We might, yeah, that's why we're smiling.
Yeah, so I'll try to divide it into, like, I guess, like, cause I'm since I was concurrent, I'll sort of focus on more extracurricular activities that were a little bit more like kind of generalized that anybody can participate in, that are kind of before your education degree, and then more volunteer that are focused within your education degree. So one big fun thing that is, getting involved in university clubs is always really fun. So there's different clubs for departments, faculties, different social activities, freestyle dance club, as mentioned in the chat. And it's a really good way to meet peers, not only in your own program, but in different programs. Each club has a different level of activity and hosting events. So there's a lot of clubs listed on the website. Instead of trying to join every single one and not really going to any events because you get too many emails and it's kind of overwhelming, a recommendation of like quality over quantity is choose like 2 to 3 clubs that you seem really interested in, and really like commit yourself to actually going to the events. And you can make a lot of friends that way. You can get involved. If you want to take on more responsibility, you can become an executive. You can learn organizational skills, planning, budgeting, stuff like that. So student clubs are available like regardless of your degree. We're education specific. There's the Education Students Association, and Tina and I are probably a little bit biased because we're executives on that club right now. But we host professional development sessions, different information sessions, job information sessions, graduation events, depending on the if we're allowed to in the future, and like a lot of different programming that sort of helps supplement your degree outside of classes. And it's also a good way to meet other people in the program. Another thing is that the ESA is also an Alberta Teachers Association student local. So we are officially affiliated with that organization. And when you're a student, you can actually join ATA specialist councils that are connected to professional councils across the province where you can meet actual teachers. So the ESA is a really good one as a faculty club. Another thing that Tina and I got a little bit involved in our undergrad is the University Students Union. So that's the equivalent to student government, even though the Students Union is like a nonprofit advocacy organization that advocates on behalf of students to the government, to the university, and stuff like that. And kind of a brief summary of that experience. Tina was actually vice president in academics, so she held a much higher role than I ever have in the Students Union. But so basically, it's somebody our age, our sort of like, or different ages in life, who's a student, who sits essentially as a representative of other students. So there's faculty representatives where you can actually sit on committees along with your professors. Some students at the higher levels, they can sit on an actual board that governs the entire university. You can sit on academic committees where you're sort of like an equal partner with professors and gain a lot of really cool leadership experience that way. It kind of works like a little mini election where you put posters around campus. You kind of have little forums and stuff where you pitch your platform. There's a lot of stuff available on the website. That's a really fun, good way to meet people and stuff like that. Service learning is a really great one for education specific, so it kind of gets you more outside the university into the community, volunteering at schools. There's just so many. There's quite a few different volunteering extracurricular opportunities. Oh, there's this cool program I'm a part of called the Scholars Academy, which is a little bit less volunteering, but there's opportunities to do service projects. We get to go on a BANF retreat, leadership development, kind of you get mentorship from community members. There's the Future Alumni Network. If you're very eager to be an alumni before you've even graduated, that's a good way to get involved that way. Yeah, there's just a lot of opportunities. Again, try not to be too overwhelmed by it, but student clubs, student government, and then faculty is always good. I'll let you take it away. I'm feeling a little bit there.
Thanks, Jonah. Yeah, I'll try not to repeat, but yeah, I've been involved in the ESA and the Students Union, and student leadership opportunities. There's tons on campus. Outside of education a little bit, something that kind of I got started with as a student when I was in just my general science degree was the peer helper program. So that's something I'd recommend students look into. Basically, it allows students to take on kind of, it's a co-op in a sense. It's volunteer, but you basically get to work in different offices across campus. So depending on whether you want to help out at career services or the leadership office or the TV station on campus. So there's lots of different opportunities to basically shadow the staff that are working there and learn job skills as a student. So that's a really awesome program. You can look it up, Peer Helper Program. The Leadership and Student Engagement Office is great for getting involved. They kind of help run that program. I saw a question in the chat about sports, whether they're tryout or recruitment based. So we do have our varsity teams that are mostly recruitment, but there are lots of clubs that have sports associated with them. There's a Quidditch team, bubble soccer. So, anything that you can imagine, there's probably a club for it. There's over 300. And trying to think if there's anything else I want to mention. Try not to get overwhelmed. There's tons of extracurriculars. Jonah and I have been students for quite a long time, so we didn't do all of these things in 1 year. I think, get your foot in the door, talk to people, go and subscribe to different newsletters, and try things out. In my first year, I did some extracurriculars that really weren't for me, and then, so you kind of figure out what you don't like and get into more of what you enjoy. So.
Thank you so much. So just being conscious of time here, so I definitely want to say thank you to Jonah, Tina, and Ruth now since she's gone, but thank you guys so much for your time. If students have additional questions, please feel free to send us a quick email just at upe@ucalgary.ca. But now I just want to hand it over to the manager of undergraduate programs, Angela, just for a final note before we end up for today.
Thank you all. I want to thank you for joining us and participating today. A special thank you to Tina, Jonah, and Ruth, who actually spoke to their experiences and could tell you all about what life is like as a student here. They are extremely involved and very positive and have gone through our tab and service learning and some of those pieces, and Jonah's work going on to the research side of things. And just encourage you all to reach out to us at UPE@UCalgary with any questions. I know some of you had specific questions about courses, registration, different courses that you're wanting to take or trying to get into, and so we can definitely help you out there. We also have field advisors that can answer questions if you have specific questions to your field experience, and their email address is upefield@ucalgary.ca. So again, thank you very much for taking the time today. We look forward to you joining us, becoming one of our students, and welcome to a great program, and there's lots on the horizon and opportunities for you. So thank you all, and thank you, Will and Virginia, for hosting this session, and feel free to reach out with any questions, and wishing you all a great day. Stay well and stay healthy, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks all.